Hello, everyone. It's 12 noon. We want to go ahead and get started here. My name is Sandoval Chagoya. I'm the Communications Director for the California Community Colleges Technology Center. Today we'll be covering the MyPath product, which is a student onboarding tool that we believe can provide some solutions in critical areas to your college. Before we get started, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted to the CCC EdPlan website. I'll provide the URLs for where that will be posted at the end of this session. In addition, we will follow up to all of the registrant email addresses that we have to provide that link to the webinar as well. So if you know someone who is not able to attend today, they will have the opportunity to watch the archive. Second piece of housekeeping, we do have live captioning enabled for this session. You should see a closed caption option in your Converter Zoom power bar. If you're not seeing live captions on the screen, then you should be able to activate them by choosing the closed caption. Okay, enough housekeeping. Thank you. Welcome once again to the CCC MyPath webinar, February 13th. Our speakers today will include Mike Caruso. He's a MyPath product manager. We have Ralph Plaza from MZ, who will be speaking about Career Coach. I'm not sure if Gina from College of the Canyons was able to make it today, but we do have Noelia, who will be talking about college implementation from the College of the Canyons. And once again, I'm Sandoval Chagoya, the Communications Director, California Community Colleges Technology Center. Oh, hi, Gina. I see you in the chat. That's great. Great news. Really appreciate you being here and speaking on behalf of MyPath. So moving on, just a high-level view of our agenda today. We'll be looking at MyPath overview provided by Mike Caruso. Ralph Plaza is going to provide us with a Career Coach overview. And we're then going to hear from College of the Canyons regarding their implementation of MyPath locally. We'll have a Q&A session, and we will end things with the contact and follow-up information slide. Learning objectives are in the slide that I'm sharing for the share screen. We're going to look today at how MyPath can potentially help your college solve the problems of learner onboarding in alignment with Guided Pathways Pillar 1. We're also going to look at how it may be able to address your high attrition between application and enrollment. We'll be looking at the Career Coach application and the value it adds to MyPath. And then we'll hear from College of the Canyons regarding their implementation of MyPath. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mike Caruso to get us started. Mike, are you there?
I am. Great. Thanks, Sandoval.
Thank you. Yep, loud and clear.
Perfect. Alrighty. If you want to go ahead and turn over the screen share, I will go ahead and share mine. Okay, so since we've got some really great guest speakers today, including Ralph from Career Coach and also the folks from College of Canyons, I'm going to keep my part relatively brief. And what we're going to talk about is a little bit of the genesis of the design of MyPath and the problem that we're trying to help you guys solve for. A little bit of the way the product is implemented and how it will help address some of those problems with student attrition during onboarding. And then we'll turn it over to the other speakers to give you guys some great information from their perspectives. So the statistic that I always like to kick off this speech with is oh, I'm sorry, and folks, if you're not speaking, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and muting your phones. That'd be great. So the statistic I like to kick off with is one that really kind of blew my mind when I first heard it a while back. But in doing a review and some digging into the number of online applications that are being submitted to the system through CCC Apply, and figure out exactly how many of those applications are then resulting in a student enrolling in classes. There was a lot of effort that was put into examining those numbers, trying to deduplicate them, trying to make sure that we're removing applications that are obviously spam or applications that were made in bad faith, as best we can. The number that was landed on when I first heard it around 2 years ago was that something like 71% of the total volume of online applications do not result in a student enrolling in classes. At that time, 2 years ago, that was something like 1.5 million students, that we were missing out on the chance to help, to give access to our resources, to help them move to the next step of, whatever their goals were, whether that be transferring to a 4-year, gaining either better employment or, a type of employment that was more filling to their personal goals. And in the year since that statistic was originally discovered, I believe the number has actually gotten slightly worse. I think the more recent one that I heard was something more like 73 or 74%. Sandoval, does that sound right?
Yeah, it does. The trend has been upward. I think the percentage that you're naming is about right, Mike.
Yeah. So, don't quote me specifically on that number, but it's probably 73 or 74, plus or minus a couple percent. But the problem is there, and it's not getting better. And so, we did a lot of examination and investigation into what the student experience is like as they are attempting to, sort of gain access to the system, begin taking classes. And what we found is that there is a pretty obvious hole in the funnel, so to speak. So the process that a student goes through when they're applying to any of your colleges goes something like this. They start off on your college's website. And by the way, I see that there's some chat going on right now. I can't actually see what the questions are, but as soon as my portion of the presentation is over, I'll hop in there and answer any questions that I'm seeing. Anyway, a student will start on your college's website. They will decide to apply to college. So they'll find that button wherever it is. They will click on it, follow it through. It will take them into the CCC Apply process, which is actually 2 steps, which people may or may not know. The first step is the Open CCC account creation, whereby they generate a CCC ID. That seamlessly progresses into the application itself, where the student spends 15 to 25 minutes going through a series of web forms, telling us a lot of information about themselves, really telling us in the terms that are the strongest ones available to them, right? That I am interested in coming to your institution. Otherwise I wouldn't be sitting through this process of web forms to fill it out and send this to you. And then they click submit. It sends the application to us, and we give them a page that says, thanks for your application. And that's where the process ends, right? So they will then disappear off into the ether of the internet and go back to surfing Facebook or, watching TV, or maybe they're on a break at work, so they go back to work. Whatever it is, we lose them at that point, while the application is then processed by the college, and information about the next set of steps that are required of that student are then sent to them generally by email, right? And in some cases where colleges are really technically proficient, it's possible that the student might actually get an email with a set of next steps in just a few minutes. But there are also many cases where that set of next steps doesn't actually come until like a day or two later. So that is a large window of time where a student went through all this to get the information over to the college and we have their full attention, and they are clearly interested in doing whatever they can at that time to sort of begin their college journey. And then we willingly let them disappear and hope that a couple of days later, they'll notice this email in their inbox, still be feeling the same way, and continue sort of progressing along the path. That's a problem. That's a big problem. And so MyPath is something that we hope can help to solve for that particular issue. So what happens when you implement MyPath? And this is just one of the multiple ways you can turn MyPath on. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the other ways at the end. But one of the things that you can do with MyPath is actually integrate it with the end of CCC Apply. So this is a sort of intrinsic advantage of this product being developed by the same teams that are working on CCC Apply. We're part of the state level systems. And what you can do is, instead of that page at the end of the application where we say thank you and then let them disappear, we give them a big box that says, thanks for your application. Your college has an onboarding process that is ready for you. We give them the navigation built into the end of CCC Apply where they can click through and come to an experience that looks like this one. So when they land on MyPath, it'll be branded for your college. Obviously, this one says CCC TC Demo College. This is just my test account. You can configure images that are reflective of your brand. So, pictures of your students, meaningful buildings on campus, sports teams, just whatever you guys have. Make it feel like an experience that's really closely tied to your college. It will feel to the student like they have begun their local process. Now they are, instead of dealing with some state level system, they're dealing with a product or a web experience that is a part of your college, right? They've begun their journey there. And we give them kind of the meat and the potatoes of the experience down here in what we call the advisor cards. So as we were building this platform, we did a lot of research with California community college students. And one of the really common threads that we found among many different types of students that we interviewed, so students who were young, students who were old, students who were technically proficient, students who were not comfortable using the web, a lot of different kinds of people. We found that one of the things that that they all disliked was being dropped into a new web experience where they are expected to kind of suss out what it is that they should be doing, in what order things should be happening. What they were really after was a prescriptive experience that kind of tells them step by step what they should be doing. And that's what we tried to achieve with the MyPath UI. And so what you'll get here is the ability to configure a set of onboarding steps, tasks that are assigned to your students that they can begin interacting with right away, right? And so, you can imagine they have just come out of the application. You can give them a set of tasks they can begin working on the second they push submit on the application. You don't need to have process their application for them to begin working on these things. And further, this information will always be tied to them because we know their CCC ID, which is then a piece of information that you guys get as well. So there is no worry about losing any of the things that we're learning about these students. So, you can get them to start reading about career exploration. You can get them to interact with the career coach tool, which you'll see later. You can get them to begin reading about financial aid. You can get them to start reading information about local programs and events you guys have coming up. Really, whatever it is that you want them to do during that onboarding process, you can expose to them here. You have options about where these tasks point. If you have pages that are in your local portal or on your website you want to point them to, give them tasks here. Tell them, hey, we want you to go read this thing, and then send them off to that page if that's what you want to do. Otherwise, you can always plug information into MyPath itself. You can very easily build content pages like this one into MyPath. You can embed images, you can embed videos, you can do whatever it is you want to do and keep them in a single place if you think that is a thing that you would rather have. But the point is that you can deliver content and help students understand what is expected of them right away after the application. But we wanted to go a step further than that as well. We know for a fact that onboarding is not a one-size-fits-all proposition, right? There's no possible way that you could create a set of like 5 steps that are just universally applicable and as useful to one student as they are to all the rest, right? And further, we know that that students have just spent a ton of time telling us all kinds of information about themselves in the application, so why not take advantage of that? So we have in MyPath what's called the rules engine. And what that will allow you to do is actually gain access instantly to the students' CCC applied data and cause the MyPath onboarding pathway to dynamically alter itself based on facts that we learn about them during the application, right? So if you learn that they are a veteran and that they need childcare services, maybe you don't want the first step to be orientation. Maybe you want it to be read about veteran services at whatever your college is. Maybe you want it to be read about our childcare resources here on campus. Maybe you want it to be veterans with children. Really the options are endless. You can do whatever you want to do. And hopefully our college speaker later in the presentation will talk a little bit about some of the rules that they have set up because they've got some pretty exciting ones they're going to be using. But the point here is that not only are you able to, instead of giving them an experience where they send you an application and then disappear for a couple of days and then hope that they come back, you can give them access to an onboarding platform that they can begin interacting with immediately after submitting the application, and further, that it will be tailored and dynamic based on who they are and what we know about them, right? It'll feel much more based on their needs, much more customized to the student. We also know that the goal is to help them transition to an enrollment, right? And so to that end, we wanted to make sure that the experience is as sticky as possible. And so what we can actually do is you can turn on automated reminders so that that MyPath will reach out saying, hey, we saw that you finished these 2 steps. It's been a day. Why don't you come back and start working on the next step, right? And the emails that we send to the students and the text messages that we send to the students, all of which are functionality that you can turn on for free, of course, because this product is free, will actually be branded for your college as well. So like an email that we send out will have your college's logo and name and stuff in it, and then it will direct them back to MyPath. And specifically, it will direct them back to whatever the next step is that they have to accomplish. Because as you can see here, MyPath is really designed as a giant sort of ordered checklist. So as they finish things will check off, the progress bars will increment. And then, there are things that are open, like for example, this particular test student hasn't completed the student life step. And so the bar is not finished, the step's not checked. The next reminder they would get would be directing them to go interact with that student life step. Okay, so that is the quick 15-minute overview of what MyPath is and how it works and what problem that we're trying to solve for. I want to make sure we've got plenty of time for our other speakers today, so I'm going to stop my portion here and I'll start looking in the chat to answer questions. So Sandoval, you can feel free to have this back and we can continue.
Very good, Mike. Check the chat. There was a question from Gina there regarding the stat.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. So is the stat for students who do not complete the online app and CCC apply, or the number of students who do not move to enrollment? So the stat specifically is students who complete the application and then do not enroll in classes. So it's a problem that we feel we can help solve for, probably not completely, but at least make a good dent in, because we think the problem is workflow related. We think it's because they are submitting applications and then nothing is happening for a couple of days.
Yeah, Gina, we agree. We think that's a staggering stat as well. Okay, Ralph, if you're ready to begin, Ralph Plaza with MZ is going to give us a tour of the Career Coach app, which is part of MyPath overall.
Sure, wonderful. Yep, I'm hoping everybody can hear me well. You should be able to see my screen here. What we're looking at here is the Career Coach homepage for the California Community College Career Coach. My name is Ralph Plaza. I work with MZ. Many, hopefully, most of you know a little bit about MZ and what we do. We're a labor market modeling company, and this is our career exploration tool that we've adapted for the Tech Center to use along with MyPath. And I hope you can kind of see the value that it might bring to your students as it relates to the whole package here. What I'll do is just kind of talk to you a little bit about what to expect here in Career Coach. Career Coach is designed to help a student make a decision, kind of see the broader picture of what's out there as it relates to occupations and the programs that your colleges serve, okay? And so what we've done is created this, hopefully, very simple homepage here to get a student in that process. There's kind of multiple functionalities here in the homepage that, again, are, I hope you'll agree, are fairly simple. I'm going to show you the military veteran functionality. Okay, if a veteran, for example, wants to know kind of what their military occupation code translates into standard occupation codes, civilian occupation codes, if you will, they would just need to put in their, say, 13 Bravos. They put in their MOS, and what they'd be looking at here are occupations that are similar to what they did in the military. Okay, so this is just one functionality that they have. So these are occupations that show that are kind of similar to this particular mock code. That's one functionality that you'll see on the home page, which is down here, and it's also in the search mechanism. The other thing is that if a student wanted to just start looking at a career, just they wanted to see a career, and they could type in almost anything here. I'm going to say vet for like veterinarian, and so these are careers that relate to whatever it is they type in that search box. Okay, that's one of the functionalities of Career Coach. Similarly, the program functionality is similar. I'll put vet in there as well, and so now these are programs that are associated with whatever it is they're searching for. That's one functionality that a student can go forward with. I'm going to kind of show you one as a student would go maybe through an assessment. Okay, this is one way you could just guide your students to say, hey, take an assessment. And I'm going to show you a little bit about our assessment. Our assessment has two functions. It's either a 6-question or a 60-question. Typically, the 6-question one is much more easy for a student to just start getting into seeing what careers are available for them and how they map to your programs. We found the 6-question one not to be the panacea, but been very, very helpful for students to get into and start to see the breadth and width of what is available for them. So I'm going to take the 6-question one here in front of you, and basically it just talks about, don't worry about money and so forth. And then these are the 6 questions. Very straightforward. What would you like to do? Work hands-on with objects, machines, tools, plants, etc. So they would just kind of look at this and sort of agree, disagree, or kind of rank this and say, oh yeah, I'd really like to do that. Would you like to observe, learn, analyze, etc. And so a student again would look at this as well and say, yeah, I'd like to do that. Express yourself creatively. How about that? Do these 3 bullet points kind of connect with you? I don't know about that. So inform, enlighten others, and teach. Yeah, okay, I'll agree with that. Would you like to influence or persuade? No, I don't want to be in sales. So let's say they would strongly disagree to that. Work with facts and numbers, detail. No, not so much. So, so now we took the assessment. We could retake it here if you wanted to. You could save the results and download the results as well, which is to say this is modeled on Holland assessment tools. And so they kind of gives you a Holland, the traits that a Holland test would provide. And then what it does is it matches. It gives kind of a percentage of some of the occupations that exist. Now, these are the 16 career cluster occupations that you might be familiar with from the federal government. And so what it does is it ranks them. It says from that assessment you just took, it's suggesting that there's a 100% match. In other words, health science might be, the best direction to look at here, for example. But I'm going to show you something here. Let's say they're interested in information technology. They're computer people, and they wanted to see kind of what's under there. Now, under that path, there's paths underneath each of these, but it also suggests, well, there's a 75% match there. So if they wanted to look at other things, they kind of still gauge what their match would be. I'm going to go through health science here, and I'm just going to kind of look at the paths that are underneath health science, the occupations here. And it's saying therapy, natural healing, et cetera, is 100%. Diagnosis and treatment is 99%, et cetera. So a student would look at this and maybe click on one of them. I'm going to click on diagnosis and treatment. And then here, what we're looking at are all the different occupations that exist under that path, right? And so we're also looking at if you want to get a doctorate or a master's. Well, let's assume, or let's say a student says, no, I don't want to get a doctorate, so they can deselect that, deselect master's. Let's say they're just looking for an associate, okay? So now we're just looking at occupations that require an associate's degree and that they could get into. So registered nursing is one, and as they look at these, they start to get information about what this occupation has for them. One of the things I'll mention here is all of this data will be regionally connected with whatever region they're looking at. You'll see here in a moment that we can change our regions. So what we've done is we've provided some, as I call it, pretty heavy duty labor market information about wages and what kind of education might they need for this, for example. And it's very attainable. So a student can look at, and I'm hoping you'll see that each one of these pages shows a student be able to look at it and be able to understand what it is they're seeing and be able to help them make a good choice. And so here, for example, registered nurses, you see that 66% of them, they have an associate's. Some have masters, et cetera. So it depends on what they're looking at. It'll give them that information to help them make a kind of a better choice. I'm going to click on registered nurses, okay? And now we're seeing exactly kind of where we're at. One of the functionalities that Career Coach has, if you're a MyPath college, is if a student came in through MyPath, okay, what they would do is their region, which is to say your region, would come up here, okay? Again, take a look at the labor market information here, and then I'm going to change this region. Let's say they came in from the greater Sacramento region, right? So it's broken up through the Doing What Matters regions, okay? And so all the colleges that are here in the Sacramento region will come up. So now we see that the median salary has changed, the job openings have changed because now we're looking at this specific region. So if a student comes in through MyPath, it will automatically show the region that they've come into. And if they came in through your college, if you have a program associated with this particular occupation, your college would filter to the top. Okay, so let's just keep going here. A student would look at, this is sort of the overview of the occupation, and then there's an about functionality that they can look at to talk about what the daily tasks are. Okay, this is the national education attainment level. So again, this shows all of them. The one we saw before just showed the top 3, okay? And then these are skills that employers are asking for. This comes from job postings data. One of the things I'll mention here is all the labor market information is updated quarterly. So you have it updated quarterly labor market information as it relates to wages, which is, I'll show you the next thing. And then all of the job postings data that you see here is updated monthly. So student is looking at very current information about the jobs and the opportunities that they have in these occupations. So now we're looking at the wages functionality. So these are the wages. Again, I'll jump up and down on for this region that we've chosen. Okay, and I think it's very important for a student to understand what wages they could get for a particular region. And then also here finally on this particular page is the employment information, job postings. This kind of gives a student an idea of what is happening in the sort of real economy, the more immediate economy as it relates to this occupation. So it gives the next couple of years kind of where we expect it. And then these are companies that are posting jobs. Again, all this is regional information to give them an idea where they would work. Depending on what occupation they're looking at, we found it helpful for them to understand kind of where they might work. And then employment projection. What is the projection? What is the trajectory of this particular occupation in the region we've chosen? Okay, so that's kind of one very important functionality here. But also, what happens is a student could say, okay, well, I want to see where I can get this particular training for this occupation I'm looking for. And this is what I call the program page. So this is the program page that helps the student say, okay, this is the program I'm looking for. They can save it to their profiles if they'd like, and be able to kind of go back to it. They could save a number of either occupations or programs that they're interested in, or from here they can start looking for what are the other related careers, for example, that they were looking at. Okay, so that's kind of this kind of brings them back to, okay, now here's nursing instructors and teachers, et cetera. And so they're going to see that what it would take to have the overview and the about and so forth. So this is what Career Coach has to offer for your students, and what we hope is that you'll see that it could really help your students be able to understand kind of what the breadth and width is as it relates to occupations in their region and the training that they can get for it. So anyway, I look forward to any questions that you might have as we go forward.
Thank you, Ralph. Very much appreciate it. Go ahead and check the chat window. We have a question from Rick Snodgrass. Thank you.
So to answer a couple of questions that I'm seeing in the chat, the career coach region is actually populated by MyPath. So we pass that information depending on which college account the student came from. So that region or that information is generally automatically regionalized when the student gets to career coach, to answer your question, Rick. In terms of when this will be available, it is available now. I believe we do have some enabling services representatives here in the webinar with us. So if you wouldn't mind letting us know which college you're with, we can actually reach out to you with more information. And what is the time difference between the short and long versions of the survey? Rob, that's probably a question for you. There's a question from Dave Childers in chat about how much time it takes to go through the different versions of the assessment.
Yeah, I mean, it takes, well, you saw me go through the 6-question one, so that, I mean, it's fairly quick. The other one is a 60-question one, so that's more of about a 12 to 15-minute time frame, and that might be something more helpful if, say, you've got a student across from you that is still not sure what he or she wants to do, and where you can maybe go through that more in-depth assessment. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Ralph. And then for you, Vanessa, we will provide contact information. I believe you're with Compton College. Is that correct, Vanessa? We will be providing. Yeah, thank you, Compton College. So there will be a member of our college relationship management team will reach out to you. We have regional college support individuals that are assigned to specific colleges, so we can certainly follow up with you. Also, later in the presentation, folks, I'll be providing an email, further interest I do see people populating the chat with their direct interest. I appreciate that, and we'll definitely be contacting you if you've indicated interest that way. There will also be an email that will be available to everyone as we move into the last part of our presentation. And then thanks for your participation in the chat, those questions. You can keep pushing questions there as we proceed. I'm very pleased to announce that both Gina and Noelia from College of the Canyons have joined us today, and they are able to share with you some of their experience with the MyPath implementation, where they are, and what they're hoping to accomplish with the tool as a whole. Gina and Noelia, I think you should be able to just unmute your mic and speak to us.
Unmute. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Well, this is Gina, and sorry I joined late, and I'm not sure if you had a format already discussed with Noelia. I ran from another meeting to join, but I thought what I would do is start off by a little bit about what my role has been with MyPath, and then I would let Noelia speak a little bit more about the rules and her end of implementation in terms of kind of the more technological end. So I am the Dean of Career Services and Special Programs at College of the Canyons. I work closely with Enrollment Services, and actually Noelia is part of the Enrollment Services team in Admissions and Records. I'll let her tell you a little bit more about her role. But we were looking at a need for students to have career exploration on the front end before they submitted an application. This is all driven by guided pathways. And particularly in the CCC Apply, there is no, I believe on our college, it was an internal decision to remove undeclared as the major, which actually was very helpful for those of us in career services. That was our target audience, to be able to go after and talk to them about career exploration. But I guess I'm not 100% sure. So this others on the line and in this conference webinar may know more about this, but I believe, I'm not even sure if that was an internal decision. I believe it was because of financial aid, students have to have a major attached to their application in order to qualify for financial aid, as well as some, maybe other, legal reasons. So anyway, that was really the driving force for us at College of the Canyons, was how can we get our students to have some thought process surrounding their selection of their major. We had found that students, when their application migrated from CCC Apply into our own system, everybody, a large portion anyway, had business or administration of justice, because they're at the top of the alphabet, since undeclared was not an option. And then, of course, most of our students want to be nurses. So that in and of itself is problematic. So having Career Coach seemed like a really good solution. We had seen a demo. It appeared to be quite easy. We had the folks through MyPath and Career Coach talk to our IT people just to confirm that there wasn't anything on our end with our MIS, that there had to be any kind of login or any kind of student sensitive information that would be passed back and forth, of course, outside of CCC Apply. And so it met, all of the standards from our MIS and our IT department, which is they didn't have to do anything. So that was a big plus. So really just getting buy-in from the rest of our student services deans and our, of course, our VP, Associate VP of Enrollment Services, pretty much just said, make it happen. And so that's really what my role has been, as identifying the different advisor cards and working with Beth Knowles and Shad with MyPath, super easy to work with. So I developed a shell of identifying all of the cards that we would possibly need, and then making decisions such as which ones would we have appear by default, that we want every student to see, every new student, any new transfer student, and any returning students, because those are the three populations that use CCC Apply. And we opted to include financial aid, because that's much of our funding will be driven on students who are financial aid recipients. And then we have a department that I oversee on campus called the Hub, which is career exploration and helping students decide on a major based on having done some intensive career counseling. So we want every student, new, returning, new transfer, to get those two cards, and then everything after that would be unique to the student based on how they filled out the application and the areas of interest that they indicated that they indeed were interested in. So that kind of that just-in-time information that goes along the line with the guided pathways philosophy, where our old or prior orientation system and even our communication methods in the past, and really for the last several decades, has not changed much. It was, kind of bombard the student with anywhere from how to complete orientation, how to park, how to buy textbooks, how to petition to graduate, what to do if you're sexually assaulted, what to do if, you want to repeat a class. All that information was given at once at the front end. And so now we're much more methodical, and we've really thought about our communications process. When does a student need the information? They will likely utilize and move from point A to point B and be successful if they get the information when they need it. Who needs to know the time frame to petition to graduate the day they apply for school? They haven't even started yet. So the cards, it's not the end all. It's this, from us, MyPath is a part of a larger picture of how we are serving students. But it's certainly, I think it's a great tool. We're hoping to go live, I think, in the next 2 weeks. And I think it's a great start. So students are getting the information that they need. And I think what they've asked for, and just another example is, we would have, in our orientation, we told everybody about athletics, that we have an athletic program, it's great, all the stats, how many things we've won. Well, many students are not interested in that. There's a very small, narrow population that's interested in becoming an athlete here on campus. So that would be a card that would be returned at the very beginning. But then there are some that we have our first year promise that is not a card, that is not an interest on our application, but we've been able to build in some logic that if a student was a California equal to California resident and they were an equal to new student, first time student, we returned a card to them that they may be interested in applying for first year promise. So I think that's about it for me. I don't know if you have any questions or if you want to move directly on to Noelia.
Hi, Gina. Thank you. Thanks very much. We appreciate you sharing that story. I do have a question in the chat from Jen Lewis. She would like to know what ERP system you're using locally.
ERP, well, we're on DataTel, Colleague. Is that what you're referring to, ERP? I'm not sure what ERP is.
Yeah, I believe it's going to be either one of those. Could you repeat that, Colleague?
Colleague is, I believe, the software company. It used to be called DataTel, and I think they moved. Ellucian is the company, and the product is called Colleague. When they purchased it from DataTel, we went live with DataTel in 1999, and we've been using that product since.
Sure, thanks. We appreciate the information. Jen's confirmed that was what she was looking for. Noelia, would like to invite you to unmute and share your experience with us. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Confirmed, loud and
clear.
clear. Yeah.
Well, I think Gina said the bulk of it, but I knew that they were working on implementing this product months and months ago, and I was literally just brought in after winter break, so a month ago.
Yeah, like 2 weeks ago.
So I was brought in to do the testing. And I know Gina mentioned, I support student services and enrollment services and admissions and records, and I do a lot of testing and trying to find new processes and basically just try to break the system and fix the holes. So I went in for the first time and it was ridiculously easy. I only had a couple questions, and Gina and I were able to meet and hammer out the cards literally in a day, in a couple hours last week, to follow up on any of the changes that we had made. And yeah, we should be ready to go live. I even think sooner than 2 weeks. I think all of our cards are good to go. The rules, having to send the rules over to Shad and Beth to update has been, super easy. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's a really cool product. For me, just jumping into it and seeing what it looks like for a student, it's actually pretty cool. And being able to provide the students a little bit more of a visual on things that they checked off that they would be interested on the application, instead of just checking it off. And some departments don't have any communications going out, or students don't know where to look. So it's just another place to be able to provide students with additional information right after they submit their application, because we send out a confirmation email with their student ID and their next steps and missing steps, but we never really hone in on the services and interests and kind of trying to market, hey, you might be eligible for a first year promise, or you might be eligible for, check out the hub. So it's another great tool to include into our basket.
Now, we haven't gone live yet with Career Coach. That will be our next step, and I'm eager to see how that rolls out. We will want to opt to have that on the front end of the CCC Apply, so that, like I said earlier, our whole objective is when students get to the point of selecting their major on CCC Apply, they will have at least thought about it for a moment, and maybe compel them to select something that's much more closely aligned than what was at the top of the alphabet.
Exactly.
Yeah, actually, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump in for a quick second. One of the things that we didn't really talk about, because we were just trying to keep things, simple and streamlined, is that, MyPath is a post-application onboarding tool that does all the things we talked about at the beginning, but there is also a very easy way to turn MyPath on additionally if you want before the application as well. So, College of the Canyons has a great point here, which is they would love to have their students go through the career research tool before completing the application, so that the information they're inputting into CCC Apply is researched and thought through, right? We've given them the tools that they need to understand what choices they're making there. And so that is an option. So when we talk to you guys about implementation, when we do the demonstration, when you're dealing with our implementation team, just explain to them what it is that you're after, and we can very easily help you turn it on, before or after, or before and after the application. These are all very simple things for us to do.
Yeah, what we plan on doing is, our ultimate goal is to have the Career Coach on the front end. They complete CCC Apply. MyPath comes up and returns these cards. And Noelia, we decided on a new card, or augmenting the hub card just yesterday, Alicia and I, so that in that card, the one that's the default for all students, that one of the tasks points them to our Cooter Journey Career Assessment Survey. So they will have another opportunity to use a career assessment tool that we use internally. And then from there, we will invite them to come to the hub to have that interpreted.
Excellent. Gina and Noelia, we certainly appreciate you sharing your stories today and your experiences with MyPath. Very compelling. And again, we appreciate your time given to this. Folks, we're at about 12:50, and I do want to be mindful of time. Just a reminder, do push your questions into the chat window if you have any for us. We'll take a few minutes here. I've been monitoring chat. I think that the majority of questions have been answered in there. If anyone, okay, I've got a new one here. Is there a way to create an online orientation in MyPath, or only a link to one? So Mike, I'm gonna direct that question to you.
Yeah, so it's dependent, right? It depends on what you are looking for in an orientation. If you're looking for a way to deliver, for example, some recorded content, some visual content or text, you can easily embed that into a content page in MyPath and have the student consume that within MyPath. There is also a precedent that's been set to use Canvas as an integrated orientation tool. Most colleges are live on Canvas at this point, and we do have at least one district that is actually hosting an orientation module as a class within Canvas that they send students to from MyPath. That is a thing you can do as well. Or if you're using a separate orientation tool that you purchase from a vendor, you can very easily link the student to that tool from MyPath as well. So again, I would just encourage, as you're talking to our implementation team, that you bring that up as a topic, and we'll figure out how we can best help you deploy the tool set that MyPath offers. We do have a future feature coming hopefully very soon. We're working with some of our colleges now on it. whereby MyPath will be able to work with Project Glue to be able to also automatically update local systems when a student has completed a number of tasks in MyPath. And that will allow you to utilize MyPath as an orientation or onboarding tool as well. And again, feel free to bring that up with the implementation team, and we can talk to you about it.
That's great, Mike. Thanks for the information. We have another question here. If the student uses the link for orientation, is there a way to provide proof of participation? I'm assuming that would be proof of participation within MyPath, Mike.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was just speaking to about having Glue update your systems, and we're working on that right now. So we can basically provide proof the student went there. But if you're sending them to a system or a tool that is external to MyPath, like a vendor-based tool that you guys use locally, that integration, that data would have to come from them, or we can work on trying to get it for you. But again, it's going to be a case-by-case basis. So we'll need to talk to you guys about that kind of individually.
Sure. Mike, if the online orientation was wholly within MyPath, would we be able to?
Yeah, that's what I was just talking about using Glue to tell the student to tell the college when a number of steps have been completed in MyPath. So that's actively under work right now.
Okay, very good. So we have the feature in process. Let's see. Any more questions monitoring the chat window? I'm going to go on to our last slide here, which has some information. One thing I want to highlight, try to highlight it and kill it. So you'll see in the slide, if you are ready to sign up, there is an email address there. We ask you to contact the Tech Center College Relationship Managers via this email. Once we have your contact information, you'll be routed to the specific college relationship manager that's responsible for implementation on your campus. Just looking back at the chat room, or the chat once again, we had a question from Jen Lewis. Are there any costs associated with using MyPath or Career Coach? Mike provided the answer there. No, they are both free. Yeah, these products were designed and developed by the Technology Center, but really were designed and developed in broad collaboration with the entire state. So these were not outside products and services. They were developed internally by the colleges and for the colleges. Do you want to emphasize that? And we certainly appreciate the larger contribution and the ability to serve the larger mission for our students. Okay, again, I'm going to keep this slide up for a few minutes here, just in case anyone needs to jot down this information. You'll see the email address there. There is more information available if you'd like to peruse that or to share it with colleagues. There are a couple of URLs on the page, and that second one in particular, the resource kit / webinars link, that's where we'll be posting the webinars as soon as we have the recording from this session available. We'll distribute that back out to all of the email addresses that registered for today, and it will also be posted to that second URL you see on the screen. We're also on a path of monthly webinars right now for CCC MyPath, and the next MyPath webinar is scheduled for March 13th, Wednesday again, from noon to 1 p.m. Okay, that concludes the main part of the presentation. I am going to leave this this slide up for a few minutes until 1 o'clock. Again, we intensely appreciate your time given to this subject the afternoon. I'd like to send my appreciation to the presenters as well. And we will reconvene again in a month for a similar webinar. I believe we will have Long Beach City College as our college implementation, local college implementation representatives for that presentation. Thanks, everyone. We're very close to the 1 o'clock hour. Go ahead and end this session. Thanks very much.